Tracy Stirzaker, and this is my show. And so what I wanted to do was to talk to you a bit about myself, and then to show you some of the artworks and talk to some of the artworks in the space today. So I was in high school and remembering doing art and really enjoying art, and then it got to year 11 and 12 and I was in a country town and I had to choose between art and economics. Well, basically I chose economics. So there was always this bit of me that was a bit creative, and so I remember doing lots of things like sewing. I made my own clothes, I really got into baking and exploring new recipes. And also started doing art classes. So I did jewellery making, and I did painting and mosaics. And then you fast forward through a career and then with kids, and I'm in my, after a weekly art class, I'm sitting in the car park, and I turned to my friend and said, this is my chance. This is my chance to follow my dreams of being an artist. So I secretly enrolled in art class, in art school. Didn't tell my family because I had this feeling that it's something that I wanted to do, but I wasn't sure that I really wanted to have that dream squashed by anybody else, or just to doubt, had any doubt coming in. So I secretly applied. So then imagine the surprise of my in-laws who were looking at the Sydney Morning Herald to see whether or not my nephew had gotten into uni. And he's 18, and Stirzaker is not a common name. And so there it is, there's two Stirzaker names, and they're going, who's T. Stirzaker? Well, you know, I wasn't 18 anymore, but I was going back to uni. So I followed my dream, and here I am today with my third solo show. And the concept of this show draws from my lived experience, but also my research into self-worth. I am inspired by the work of Marissa Peer, and she is a English therapist and a hypnotherapist. She does podcasts, and she basically works with a lot of celebrities and a lot of stars, and but also inspiring other people. And also, you may have heard of Brené Brown. She is an American social researcher and storyteller, and she also investigates self-worth and vulnerability. But both of these women inspire other people. And there were other people I investigated along my journey as well, but that's how I came to this show. So when I was studying full-time in my fine arts degree, I was working part-time and I was studying, but then my world changed. I found myself as a mother with family members on mental health journeys. So in that journey, you know, I cared so much about them, I forgot to care for myself. And I had to take some time off uni, and things went a bit awry for a while. But then I was kind of drowning in caring for others, and I've got this journal entry here actually. I was out walking one day and I realised that people, particularly mothers and carers, can get lost in the everyday and forget about themselves. And so in a particularly challenging part of my life, I was out of balance and I wasn't taking care of myself. My self-worth was low and I was overwhelmed, and I went on a journey of self-discovery, and I started to take small steps to rebuild myself. I sought out my inner voice, my inner canary, and I started to be kinder to myself. It was a struggle internally and externally to refine and rebuild myself. I needed to nurture my inner canary, my inner voice. I'll talk to you a little bit more about the inner canary as well. And I basically started going back into the bush and back into nature and starting to do things that brought me joy. I got back into cycling and walking and journaling, and basically this has sort of fed into this show today. I went back to uni and I finished my degree. But to me, the process of making art was like art therapy. I really got involved in the process. I could really process my emotions and really be vulnerable in the art making. It's kind of like, you know, people might write a book. Well, I make art to share my journey and to help heal myself as well. And so to any of the carers amongst us here today, I see you and I thank you for caring for your people. You might feel invisible on your journey and unacknowledged, but the people that you have cared for have benefited from your care and your support. Because I know that it can be a lonely journey at times if in the caring roles, and that could be your job or it could be for a family member that you're caring for. So let me tell you a little bit about my artworks. I wanted to start today by talking about these Jackie here under the cloche. Sorry, Bronwyn. So basically, as a young child, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, and we lived in the same small towns or nearabouts. But by high school, we had moved away, and I reconnected and spent more time with her when I raised my own family. But as a child, she had these 3 ornaments in her cabinet, and I adored them. And I looked at them, and they've got these beautiful poses, and they've actually got kind of real hair. They're actually quite lovely, actually. And they were from like the late 1950s or early 60s. And she used to say the phrase, sitting up there like Jackie. And so you'll notice that several of the artworks refer to Jackie, or in the moment of sitting up there like Jackie, and or the poses that I have chosen for some of the artworks as well reflect the poses of those 3 ornaments. And so they represent childhood, innocence, a time when you could take time out for yourself. And so I've got actually a poem that I had wrote in relation to these ornaments and to my artwork. So it starts with pause, breathe, a moment passes. I pause for a moment to still the scattered chaos of my mind. A thought comes forward. Wistfully, I'm thinking that if only I had time, I would take time for myself. So that was the inspiration of these Jackie ornaments here. And so what I wanted to do now was to move around the corner to talk to some of the artworks around this way. So these 3 works here are moments sitting up like Jackie. And so it was actually quite a funny story, really. So it was during lockdown, and I knew that I wanted to work a little bit bigger, and I had those 3 ornaments, but I couldn't quite get the whole figure out of in scale. And so I, with my creative son, we set up a green screen in the lounge room, and I actually took on the poses of Jackie in order to be able to enlarge the scale and to be able to get a bit of a human form into them rather than just using the more naive Jackie ornaments outside. So these Jackie moments all have different names, but I was inspired to bring in nature and to have Jackie sitting in the environment and almost kind of disappearing. So she is deliberately not looking out at you. She's basically within herself. She's peacefully alone. She's taking time out. She's clearing the scattered chaos of her mind. And there is a bit of joy there, but she's deliberately not smiling too much because basically she's just all about being in the moment and being with herself. You'll see that I have hand stitched into these artworks in certain sections, and basically I really enjoy the hand stitch. It's a meditative process, it's quite deliberate hand stitch, and I really like the way the hand stitch sits proud of the surface. And it also references women's work and the craft idea of women who traditionally have used needle and thread for different things. But for me, I just really like the actual process also of being able to hand stitch. This particular work here was inspired by the different native Australian flowers. I don't remember all of their names though, but these are billy buttons, and the other one here is actually responding to the pink flannel flowers that were blooming in the Blue Mountains. And I have changed the scale, but basically the pink flannel flowers are blossoming, they're resilient, and they kind of spark joy. And I wanted to be able to bring that into the artwork as well. And you'll notice I also have feathers in the artworks as well. And so on bushwalks, I collect feathers as I walk along. And this isn't just jump into my path. I can't tell you how many feathers that I have actually collected. You can see some of my collection in the gallery today. But I remember walking along and these feathers just coming down from the sky, and I'm going, oh my gosh, that's such a gift from nature, and you just really absorbed in the moment of just being with nature and having all that gratitude. And so the feather I've included in these artworks here. as well. And I'll tell you later about more about the feather as well as in my art practice. So I now want you all to move again, just around the corner again. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about another motive in my art practice, and that's my inner child Audrey. So this work is called My Inner Child Audrey, I Am Enough. And it's inspired by the black and white silhouettes of loved ones from art history. And basically, this is actually about loving yourself and about actually putting up an artwork to remind you of your inner child and your inner self. And you may or may not be familiar with writing lines in school to be able to get something to sink in. And I had collected a feather from my bushwalk and had created a quill and dipping into ink, and I had written the words, I am enough, so that it would actually ingrain into yourself so that you will remember. And that's what inspired this particular work here. A little bit of background behind Audrey, and the reason I've called the inner child Audrey is actually it's after the model that I had posed for the photographs in order to be able to create this particular artwork. And she was a young girl at the time, about 6, and she was just so innocent and so joyful, and she was really, really enjoying actually me taking a photograph of her, and she was really uninhibited, and it was a really beautiful thing to feed into the actual artwork, because that is actually about that time when you knew that you were enough. And again, I've written a poem for the artworks that relate to Audrey as well. When I was born, I knew I was enough. I deserved to be loved and cherished. I was worthy just as I was. I am enough, and I always will be. My inner child Audrey knows this, but I need reminding. I have and I've used Audrey in a few other artworks as well. There's this one here, which is pages from my life, and you'll notice that there's an Audrey motif here, and there's another work in the far corner also that also references Audrey with some hand stitch on paper. But I wanted to talk about the feathers, and so again, one of the ways that I self-care and reconnect with myself is to go walking in the bush, and I collect feathers. But I like the idea of hand stitching into paper because, like I said, it's meditative and it's quite deliberate in paper. If you do a stitch into paper, you have to actually know where you're going. In fabric, you can pull out the needle and start again, but basically once you've pierced the paper, you've pierced the paper. So it is a really deliberate action, and it's quite meditative. And the feathers also relate to the inner canary, which I did mention a little bit earlier. And the inner canary relates to the part of you that seeks out joy and that understands what actually brings you joy. And it could be really small things, or it could be larger things, but basically looking for internal feelings that actually say, yay, this is something for me, this is something that's all about me, and taking care of that inner canary. And also the canary in the coal mine, which relates to the time in the coal mines when they used to take canaries in cages into the coal mine, and if there were toxic gases, then they would know that the canary would pass away actually, that they needed to get out and be safe. And so I was using the canary in that regard into society as well, where people are basically there's an increase in anxiety and depression and low self-worth, and I wanted to raise the flag for society that actually if there are so many people who are struggling, what's going on in society. So that's kind of like the miner's canary component as well, so that's kind of the two things for that. Going back to this artwork, this is kind of a labour of love, this particular artwork, and I had joined a community or a group of women who do patchwork to extend my skills and to push my art practice as well. And I decided I wanted to create a linen patch and also have a patchwork patch. And there's a lot of different processes involved in this particular quilt. So I've deliberately chosen these particular patches, and I've drawn from fabrics from my life because I like the idea that it reflects your fabrics from the everyday, bring with them all of the things, the memories of when you're wearing those clothes, but also the journey. And I like the feel of different fabrics as well. And so that's all kind of embedded into the artwork as well. This is actually fabric from the making of my wedding dress. This is a favourite dress. I wish I knew how to fix the dress before I chopped it up, but a bit late now because I've chopped it up. But I'm going, I wish I had that skill to repair it first, because it's really a big thing now, repairing your dresses. And then this is the velvet from the making of my bridesmaids' dresses for when I got married as well, and denim from my life. And there's bits of my wedding dress underneath these feathers as well. And I've brought in the different motifs in my art practice, the words "I am enough," the Jackie poses as well, and Audrey, and the Miner's Canary, and the feathers. And so it tells a lot of stories as well in this one particular artwork as well. So, yeah, and it's called Pages from My Life. So, the other way, I actually wanted to go to the other side. So part of the show is to raise awareness about self-worth, self-love and self-care. And so I really enjoy installations and having interaction from the audience. This particular artwork is called Collective Affirmations, I Am Enough. And I invite you, after I've spoken, to take a feather and to write the words I am enough, and we will hang it for you later. But basically wanting to raise awareness and to grow this. So you can see how much it's grown since we installed it. When you start with nothing, and people have come into the gallery and they've written I am enough on the feathers. And I'm hoping that they start to think about that for themselves, and that it inspires them to take time for themselves as well. And this artwork has a sound component, but for the talk today, we've actually turned off the sound, but we'll turn it back on again. And this is inspired by Marissa Peer, who I spoke to you about before, the English hypnotherapist and therapist. She asked her clients to write on the mirror, I am enough. And I asked other women to record their voices saying, I am enough. And some of them found it easy and some of them found it hard. And so I invite you to come and sit in this Zen space that I've created, and to take a moment with yourself and thinking about that and listening to the soundscape as well. But yeah, I wanted to be able to create this sort of like this Zen environment where you could just be alone for a moment. It's a little bit harder in the gallery when it's got lots of people in it, but I'm really proud of the installations, and really thankful and grateful for all the women who volunteered their voices to record the words, I am enough. So the other artwork I wanted to talk to you about was, was this one here. So this one's got a little bit of story attached to it all. I suppose they all do as well. But this particular one, I wanted to create something large, and I really enjoy working with denim, so I knew what materials I was going to be using. But then it came down to what I was going to actually write. And originally I was going to do I am enough. But I went, actually, I've done that before, actually. Could I do something else? And so I was listening to my inner voice, my inner canary, and I was feeling a bit like, come on, you can push yourself a little bit further. But I was a little bit nervous about it. And I had read a book called Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. And it was written by a guy, actually. And I must say that when you read women's books and then you read books written by men, they are very different. And it was his perspective and him sharing his journey and encouraging people to find time to love themselves. Very interesting book. And I went, should I write I love myself? Must say I thought, can I do this? But it was good feelings, and I'm thinking, yes, because it's quite a bold statement. So, I did feel a bit naked going, yes, I love myself. But once I started, I worked on one piece at a time, and it all kind of came together, and then I needed to hand stitch it all, and I kind of grew with it. So I grew into the idea that I could say that to myself. And it's not something that I had actually even thought of saying to myself at any time before. I've said it to other people and to loved ones, but not actually to myself. And to look yourself in the mirror and say, I love myself, it can actually be quite challenging. So I've written a poem for this one as well, and it says, it's hard to say I love myself. It's hard to believe I love myself. I will practice, I am worth it, I love myself. And so, yeah, and like I said, the denim was really an important material for me to use. It's in most people's wardrobe, except my husband's, of course. He doesn't have any denim. But most people have denim, and most people can relate to denim. And as someone else said, like, it's intergenerational. Young kids have denim, they've got baby in denim, and then you've got people in their 90s wearing denim. And so it does relate to the everyday, and it does relate to different people. And this is donated denim, and so it actually is embedded with the stories of the wearers as well, not just my journey. And the whole concept of the show, I realised that on my journey, yes, it is all recycled. So yes, the whole thing is recycled. I even recycled the stuffing actually as well, but I did have to buy new threads. But yeah, but the whole concept of the show was realising that on my journey, and I realised that lots of other people were going through similar things, and I thought it was worth sharing. And I think I may have said before, but some people might have written a book, but I decided to have an art show and say, hey, come along and have a look. This might be part of your journey, it might not, but hopefully I can inspire others along their journey as well, and tell them that they're actually not alone. Thank you all for coming along today. And if you've got any questions about particular artworks or you want more information, please come and chat to me one-on-one, that's great. And I'm really happy that you all came out today. So thank you very much.